Well, for more reaction to Obama's speech, I'm joined from New York by Mike Lyons, a senior fellow at Truman National Security Project. Mike, tell me your personal reaction to the speech.
I'm a graduate of the military academy, served on active duty, and I thought the president had a chance to talk to the graduates as the commander-in-chief, and instead it was a lot more philosophical about what his foreign policy would be. So I'm not sure that he left the cadets with a lot of inspiration, which is really what they were looking for, I think, on their graduation day.
It's funny because you answered my next question. I was going to ask you how the speech was perceived in the crowd, and you answered it. So let's go on to my next question. What do you think was foremost on the minds of these cadets listening to President?
You know, the cadets are always looking over the horizon. They're concerned about the op-tempo of the Army, and that's the pace at which it's working at right now. They're concerned about budget cuts. They're concerned about the fact that the Army in particular has to cut 80,000 troops out of its ranks over the next 5 years. They're concerned about not doing traditional missions. They're going to be deployed doing counterterrorism, counterinsurgency missions, perhaps across the globe, and that's not the kind of training that West Point does. The pivot here is still to take place. As the president outlined today, he's going to want to focus more on some nation-building and peacekeeping operations, and that's not what those cadets were studying at West Point.
Mike, he's made speeches to West Point before. What do you think made this speech perhaps different than the first one he made in 2009 when he announced the United States would send 30,000 additional troops to Afghanistan? Wasn't this speech more of a closure of that war?
No question. Today's speech was closure. By telling them they weren't going to Iraq, weren't going to Afghanistan in all likelihood, I think it puts their minds at ease in one sense. But then again, it opens up the exact opposite of what will they be doing. The military, and particularly the Army, will do whatever the nation calls on it to do, and they're trained to fight and win the nation's wars. But by closing that kind of door today, I think they're going to have to rethink some of their careers right away. They're going to get into a different type of military that's going to be a lot more challenged than they expected.
And finally, is there something specific you wanted to hear from President Obama Wednesday and you did not?
I would have liked to have seen a little more specifics on what our foreign policy is going to be doing with the military. It seems as though he answered too many of his critics as opposed to saying how he would deploy the military. There are times, for example, when we could have used the military in certain situations, not boots on the ground, but could have used some of our firepower, could have used things to create a different situation in Syria, for example. We did it in Libya, didn't do it in Syria. He seems to not have a specific doctrine or a specific guideline for that. I think from a military perspective, we'd want to know and understand what that would be.
All right. Thank you so much. Mike Lyons, a senior fellow at the Truman National Security Project.